everybody. It's Ashley from SurrogateFirst, 3-time surrogate and intake director. I'm here today to talk about the surrogate's perspective of what are the potential risks or downsides to surrogacy. I know that often when you're looking if surrogacy is the best option for you or if it's right for your family, you're going to receive a lot of feedback about how amazing it is, especially when you talk to an agency. Of course, we don't want to scare you away and you think that, oh my gosh, this is going to be a horrible experience. That's not the case. I've been through surrogacy 3 times, but I was lucky because I had very smooth and boring pregnancies. But that's not always the case. And I think that a lot of times in the surrogacy world, we don't talk about the risks of what can happen with surrogacy. And that can be, physical, medical, it can be emotional, it can be financial. And so today what I'm going to do is spend a little bit of time, not on such a rosy topic, but we want to be transparent. At SurrogateFirst, we truly believe in educating. We feel that if we educate you with the good, the bad, and the ugly, then when you make that decision to become a surrogate, that you already are aware of those items and you've decided that it's worth the risk. Now I understand, the chance of something happening is very low, but I think it's still important to speak about it. Unfortunately, because surrogates are such a small percentage of the population, actual studies and scientific studies about the risks medically aren't really out there. Now, there's a couple studies that have come out that talk about having a higher risk with, preeclampsia, and we'll get into that. But I just wanted to kind of give that disclaimer. I am not a medical professional. I'm also not a legal professional. I'm going to just explain through our research and our experience and other stories I've heard on the internet. So please do not take this as the end all be all. I am just a normal human who's been in this field for several years. And we have an agency that cares and wants to get this information out for webinars and to our surrogates and intended parents too. So when we talk about these couple of things that, the medical, the mental, and the financial, we're going to kind of go into, and we'll start with medical. Any pregnancy brings risks. You can have amazing vaginal births, easy deliveries with your first or your second, and then go on to have a third and have complications. Many of the parents that are going through surrogacy, if they have tried previously IVF, or maybe they even went through childbirth, have had complications causing them to not be able to have another child. And so it's important to understand that as with every surrogacy, there is a risk with pregnancy. And those items can be hemorrhaging. It can be loss of the pregnancy. Just because it's IVF does not mean that your transfer is going to be successful. It doesn't mean that you're going to make it through the first trimester or there's going to be a heartbeat confirmation. It doesn't even make a guarantee that you're going to deliver full term. And so understanding these things still happen, even with the best doctors, the best embryos, the best uterus, the best surrogate. It still can happen, and there's not 100% guarantee of success. So I think that's really important to talk about. With gestational surrogacy, there has been, correlations between higher chances of hypertension, preeclampsia. I'm trying to think of the other ones that, you can lose your fertility, loss of reproductive organs, potentially ectopic pregnancies, and so those are items that you need to really research and look at too with IVF. I know it's hard sometimes because it's not all out there in your face, but it's important to make those decisions. I personally weighed the options, looked at my pregnancy history, spoke with the OBGYN and the reproductive endocrinologist, and felt comfortable moving forward as a surrogate. But that's something that you need to decide too. That's also why it's important to have requirements. I know sometimes it's frustrating when you are not qualified and you want to be a surrogate and you want to help a family. But the reason for that is there are extra precautions. There's extra chances of, having a complication. And so the doctors in the clinics are looking at what would be the best candidate for pregnancy? What's the safest way to keep the surrogate and the baby protected and safe during this process? When we talk about also medical, it's important to understand that with IVF, embryos can split. Also, there's a practice of, DET or double embryo transfer. Thankfully, in the clinics and in the surrogacy field and the assisted reproduction field, more and more clinics are not doing double embryo transfers anymore. When you have a double embryo transfer, especially with donor eggs, you have a higher chance of, not just a higher chance of success, but it's a higher chance of multiples. And putting your body through, twins or triplets is a lot of stress. I've seen a lot of surrogates in our field not be able to be surrogates again because of the complication of twins. And that can be early term. That puts the babies at risk. There's also a higher chance of gestational diabetes, hypertension, preeclampsia. So even higher than carrying a singleton IVF, it's even higher when you carry multiples. Again, I'm not a medical professional. I'm just going off of the articles, and there are a few studies that have been shown and I found online through medical journals. And so, that's just what I'm going off of. Do your research, make your own decision when it comes to that. The other thing that people don't talk about a lot is the mental health impact. Now, I understand that it's not everybody, and there is, there's a lot of people that have the most amazing experience and don't have to deal with anything emotional. For me, what happened is both times that I had been pregnant with surrogate babies, I had family emergencies. I'm originally from Hawaii. And so while I was pregnant, too far along to travel out of the, mainland United States or continental United States, whatever we call it, the mainland. So I wasn't able to travel back home. I wasn't able to travel back home for a death of a family member. I had a close family member that passed. I couldn't be there for the funeral. I also have had births of my siblings' children, weddings. There's been complications with family issues where I wish I could have went home to handle them when they were occurring, but I couldn't. And so that can put an emotional toll on you. The other thing is hormones. A lot of these medications do cause hormones when it comes to, progesterone, estrogen, Lupron. And that's, again, not only an emotional thing, but a medical thing. Some people have allergic reactions to the medications. Some people swell up and have red bumps. A lot of times that's improper placement, but it still happens. You are giving yourself shots every 3 days for one type of medication, every day for others. And this is for 8 to 10 weeks, even longer potentially. And the whole point of the IVF medications, just a backstory, if you're like, why am I taking these? I had no problems with fertility. So side note, we're going to jump off of our main subject of complications and, being aware. But it's because your body needs to be tricked. You need to stop your own ovulation, trick your body into thinking you ovulated so that you accept the embryo. Okay, back to our thing, just in case you needed that. But it's important to understand that there is complications, especially with the medications. I personally haven't had any other than my third journey. I did get a red lump. I know what I was doing wrong. I don't think I properly switched the needle. Amateur move. Make sure you're following all of those items. But so that's it. Also, people have been allergic to the oils that are in some of the medications. They can't switch those oils if there is a reaction. But that's important to know that you could have complications during that time. Also, our bodies, sometimes they don't work the way they want to. And so that's additional stress on us. I don't know how stressful it is when you're waiting for that period after you've had medical clearance or before you go to medical screening and it just doesn't come. It's that extra stress we put on ourselves. It's also important to understand that when you're a surrogate, even though we're doing the best we can and it's not 100% guarantee, and failed transfers doesn't mean that us as surrogates did anything wrong, we do have families that have been waiting for years. And that can cause anxiety and that can cause stress to you. Are you okay, understanding that this is not 100%? Do the best you can. And if something happens, just understand if it's a failed transfer or it's a miscarriage, You took your medications when you were supposed to. You followed the doctor's orders. They checked your lining. There's only so much you can do. And so that can cause a lot of hardships. Emotionally too, going through a miscarriage, going through an abortion. Sometimes you may need a D&C when the miscarriage doesn't all the way, release out of your body. And so understanding there's those items that can affect your mental health. I would say too, it's very stressful. I've seen, some surrogates that are carrying multiples and they may be put on bed rest because of the multiples. And now they're stressed about their families or prolonged hospital stays. Again, these things are not happening all the time or are that common, but you have to be prepared. What happens if you were to go on bed rest and your family and your toddlers needed you? Do you have someone who can come to the house and help you? Yeah, there's compensations for things like that, but understanding the emotional toll. Or are you okay being away from your family for weeks? If you needed to be in the hospital and watch that way, just to get babies long enough past that, ideal 36 mark when their lungs are, developed and they're working on, fattening up and getting ready for birth. That can be hard too. So really talk to your family. Hey guys, the other thing I want to tell you is, my first journey, I was embarrassed about being a surrogate, not because I was helping a family, but because I was compensated and I didn't want people thinking that. And so I had a hard time asking for help because I felt like I signed up for this. So why should I bother any of my family or friends about it? But know that your family and friends love you. And if you've talked to them, and let them know, family and friends will help out. And it's not about being bitter with you. It's not that you signed up for this. You're helping change into their family's life. And so know it's okay to ask for help. Also, your agency. We're here. We're a big part of the support. When you're having reactions, if there's medical issues, if there's anything going on, that is where we shine. As an agency, especially with SurrogateFirst, we always strive to make sure you feel like family. Now, we have a high standard, so we're not the cousin who shows up 2 hours late when you need something, but we want you to feel comfortable enough to come to us. And it's important that you do, because when complications occur, reach out to your agency, call your coordinators. That's also important. If you go back a couple of webinars, is there a 24/7 line? What happens in an emergency? And so I definitely recommend, reaching out to your friends, reaching out to your family, reaching out to your agency, intended parents, and letting them know when you're struggling with something. At an agency, we should have some kind of support set up so that if you need to talk to someone, like a family and marriage therapist, or you need to speak with someone just to get things out, whether that's a psychologist or a therapist, we should be able to help you with that. And it's okay to need help. I would much prefer that a surrogate reaches out and says, I'm struggling emotionally, struggling mentally, and we get help, than you doing it on your own. Because the fact of the matter is, while there may not be a lot of studies on surrogates and the complications that occur, there are a lot of studies on what extra stress and anxiety and all of those items does to a fetus growing. And so there can be complications for the baby, even in your womb. So we want you to be happy. We want you to be peaceful. Obviously, life is like crazy. We've all been going through COVID, but we're here to help you with that. And your agency should too, if you're not with us. This is a lot, I'm clearing a lot, but I do want you to know, if at any point during this or even watching this, you have any questions, if you have any feedback, you can reach me at Ashley, ASHLEY, at SurrogateFirst, all spelled out, .com. Or if you want to keep it more anonymous, go to info, INFO, at surrogatefirst.com. You can visit our website, same thing, and be able to click on those items, get a message to someone. If you're not with our agency and you're struggling right now, or you're trying to figure out either you want to be a surrogate or you're already a surrogate and you're struggling, I don't care where you're with. We are all part of the same community. Reach out to me on any of my social medias. I will make the time to talk with you. We're surrogate sisters. It doesn't matter who you're represented by. We all are going through this together. We all made the decision to help a family, and we all should support each other. So definitely know that's open. I do want to talk about the financial side of it too. Before I do, I know a lot of people ask the common question: how emotionally do you handle when the baby leaves? And that can be hard. For me personally, I separate the sadness or, or those type of feelings with the baby leaving, and understand my body is going through a lot of hormones. My body was made to pump these hormones out when this baby was born, to help me with patience and love and connecting and bonding when you're not sleeping for a week at a time. That's what that was created for. And so I need to understand that my body is going to have to balance those down. And that's kind of what I look at. Like, I did cry when my intended mother and my first surrogate baby left me after staying with us for a little while. But more so because I was sad my friend was leaving. I had connected with the intended mother. I was fearful. Was she ever going to talk to me again? Because you can talk to your parents, you can go through the match meeting and say, hey, do you guys want a relationship after birth? But there's no guarantee. You can't force someone to have a relationship with you. And I was fearful that I thought, oh my gosh, what if this woman never contacts me again? What if I never get to see what this baby looks like? And that's why I really realized that one of the things that's important when we're talking about this is I recommend always going into a surrogacy with the understanding you're there to help grow a family. And if your family grows in the end, it's a blessing and a complete bonus. And I think that that was something I had to process after the first one. The other side of the emotional side is I struggled with, who am I? I've been trying to be a surrogate for a super long time. If you've never heard my story, reach out to me. I'll get you the link for the podcast. It was a long experience going through a couple different agencies, realizing what's right and wrong and the red flags that can happen. And I did that with some friends that have a podcast. So if you have any questions about that, I can share it. But basically, I had to deal with my identity. So much of who I was woven into becoming a surrogate, then being a surrogate, and that process of helping a family, that once baby was born, I had to say, okay, I'm also Ashley. I'm a mom. I have a career. I have family and friends I love, and I have these hobbies. So it may seem strange to you, or you may have been through surrogacy, but like, not a problem for me. I actually never met the baby. That's fine. There's no right or wrong way when it comes to how you're handling your emotions. But for me, I did have to go back to stopping the labeling. I was no longer a surrogate at that time, and really find myself. And I did that a lot with support of my Surro sisters. So having an agency have a support group is very helpful. Joining some of the transfer groups where women who are going through, the same, experience as you of transferring at the same time, going through the first, second, and third trimesters. That's also another way to really help you with with the emotions. Also family, friends, church groups, those are very helpful. I did reach out to my parents, but I never went really deep into those feelings. I knew that they were already struggling with, the fact that she wasn't carrying her baby. And I didn't want to make her feel worse because she was so thankful as it is. I didn't want to put that down on her while she was trying to bond with her baby after birth. Another thing that's great, and it's not with every agency, and it doesn't mean that it's right or wrong, but we have a health and wellness program. And it's there for your mind, body, and soul. And so there's nutritionists and personal trainers, but there's also there to help you with relaxation, meditation, getting the proper diet and nutrition to balance out those hormones too. It is never a shame if you deliver and you feel like even with those changes, you need something more. Always reach out to your OBGYN or your therapist and request to help with that. If you're struggling with postpartum depression, which can happen when you're conceiving your own children or when you're carrying, your surro buddy, that can happen. There's no shame in that. Always reach out for help. Do not do it alone. On to the next. I'm going to jump off my soapbox because that's something that's really important to me. And I believe that there's a stigma when it comes to mental health. You are not broken. if you struggle. Reach out and get that help. Financially, let's get to that point. That's why finances can be a risk or a downside to surrogacy. Make sure your escrows are fully funded. If you're doing an independent journey or your agency has some type of way that it's doing it, there can be risks involved. If your escrow is not fully funded with what could potentially be the cost of your base compensation, medical bills, all of those items, monthly allowances, maternity clothing, and lost wages, then you really risk not having all the monies needed for your surrogate journey. And what I mean by that is that, yes, you have a contract in place, but it's important to understand that if your family is local, international, any of those items, you could potentially be left with a zero balance in your escrow. You can't force someone to put money in. So always make sure, your agency normally does that for you. So they normally are making sure it's fully funded, that there's a minimum balance that is in there, that they have some type of protection or backup if something was to happen, so that you're protected. When you're doing an independent journey, make sure to fully fund your escrow. I know it's really hard sometimes for parents, but you have to look out for what is the best interest for you. I would hate, and I've heard this, I've heard of several times, more times than not, with these groups where women are left with medical bills that are unpaid. They're left with their base compensations not even being paid. And then also, that is hard, especially when you've delivered, you're expecting, you're paid these compensations for your pain and suffering and going through the pregnancy, and then to end up owing money is horrible. So make sure that you're protected in that aspect. Ask your questions to the agencies. Ask your questions independently to make sure that your legal counsel understands and protects you in that. Read your contracts. I don't care if they're 40 pages, 30, 40, 50, 60 pages. Read every word. Your attorney is compensated to help you understand and to look out for you. But attorneys are going to make mistakes sometimes. So read through that contract, understand it, highlight if you can't understand something, put a sticky note, something, and then talk with your attorney about it. Because it's important that you understand that, because that can cause emotional hardships, financial hardships, and even with your medical bills. The other thing would be, and I'm trying to think of, the most important things. I did some notes, and sometimes I venture off. But I would say, do not take it for granted. There is no way of knowing. You can have the most smooth, easy clearance process. The pregnancy can be smooth and easy. And then you can get to the end or even delivery and have a complication that can put you at risk. Severe hemorrhaging is one. Eclampsia, preeclampsia, all of these things are risks. And so making sure you've got a plan, making sure that you're not going, oh, well, for my next surrogacy, it's nice to think about those things, but complete your first one. Because I've seen people who are excited and waiting for the next one to start even before they deliver, and there's a complication. And then that really puts a lot of expectation on you. And then you struggle, you can struggle with the emotional stuff. So I think I've talked long enough. We covered medical impacts. I didn't cover everything. I did touch on the IVF side, the pregnancy side, the delivery side. We talked about mental health, missing important family events, because at certain points of your pregnancy, you're no longer allowed to leave the state or even be, outside of 100 miles of your delivering hospital. And thinking about that, there can be family emergencies that come up. Now, if there's something and you talk with your intended parents and the OBGYN and everyone feels like it's okay for you to go, then that's fine. Where I see sometimes people don't understand is if you leave your state, that's the state where the, pre-birth order or the parentage order has been filed with the courts. Not all states are going to accept that. The majority won't. And so you can risk the parent's parentage by going out of state. are going, out of the jurisdiction where your contracts were filed with the courts. Now, there are some states that accept contracts. So if your contract is out of state and your attorney explained to you they did that for a reason because of the clinic or the parents, that's one thing. But don't take it upon yourself just to travel, because that can cause you financial risk. That's another one. I totally forgot, and it's so important. You sign a contract, a legal contract that states your responsibilities, the parents' responsibilities, the compensation agreement, and the state statutes. If you breach a contract, technically your parents can sue. So make sure that you agree to the items that are in there. Make sure you're following what you've agreed upon as your responsibilities, because it could come back and cost you financially if there was something severe. I don't really hear about that, but it can happen. So make sure that you're ready and responsible. But I think I covered everything. I think we got into a lot of things. We are going to be talking to, we're going to be talking next 2 weeks from now to Joyce, who's one of our amazing coordinators. And she'll be covering surrogate perspectives, building a relationship with your intended parents. Also for intended parents, building a relationship with your surrogate. It can be awkward. It's like a love at first sight, marriage at first sight kind of thing. You guys meet during the match meeting, you have communications, but you have to get to know each other. And everyone has different love languages. Everyone has different communication styles. And so Joyce is going to kind of be talking about some ways that you can connect with each other. Then a month from now, we hope to have one of our doctors that we work with on a regular basis explain surrogacy and HIV. There are parents who may have HIV, but there are some amazing technologies through a clinic out of Connecticut that does sperm washing. So we're going to talk about SPARS. We're going to talk about the sperm washing, the different programs with the clinic that we work with down in San Diego. And so I hope to have more information for you about that. This year is going to be packed. About 6 weeks from now, it's going to be my favorite. It's going to be our surrogate husband panel, where we're going to bring on our husbands and let them tell you guys from a man's perspective how it is to deal with a woman and her hormones and her pregnancy that you're married to, who's carrying somebody else's baby. I'm sure it'll be tons of laughs, but I think they're also going to give us some really solid gold nuggets of information. Again, if you have any questions, visit our website, surrogatefirst.com. That's www.surrogate first, FIRST.com. You can visit there to get our emails. It's pretty easy. It's going to be Ashley@surrogatefirst.com, info@surrogatefirst.com. If you have any questions and you want to reach out to me personally, you can always hit me up on any of my social media handles, message me. My phone number is available. I'm here to support you guys. Good luck. Know that even with all of this that I just shared, with the proper research and the support of your agency, it is so worth the experience. I think that other than my own children, the most amazing life-changing moment, oh, did I get chicken skin, is when I delivered, and I saw the love of my intended parents and how they looked at their child. And I remember my intended mother telling me, not even telling me, she was telling the baby, like, I've waited so long for you. I'm going to love you forever. So know that there are complications, be properly researched, but I would never change my experiences for anything with surrogacy. Have a good day. I'm gonna go get myself a tissue. Thanks, guys.